Hello, students. I hope you had a great Christmas vacation. I sure did, but it's time to get back to work and learning algebra. So before we left, y'all did lesson 6.1 on graphing, and we're going to continue that during this chapter 6. So chapter 6 is the title of chapter 6 is relations, functions, and graphs. So we did graphs in 6.1. Now we're going to talk about what relations and functions are. So a relation, we're going to write down this definition. A relation is any set of ordered pairs. So the ordered pairs were, when you were graphing, you used ordered pairs. So I'm going to show you some examples of relations. So it's just a simple thing like, I'm going to show you 3 different ways to show a relation. So here's the first way. It's ordered pairs. So you will see something like this, -3, 5, 2, 2. So these are different points, 2, 4, and 4, -1. So those are relations because they all have something to do with each other. They're all would be on the same graph if you graphed them, right? So there's another way to show this. We can show this as this is called a T-chart. So these are ordered pairs. That's number 1. Number 2 is called a T-chart. And the way a T-chart works is you put your X's on one side and your Y's on the other side. So for instance, for this this one right here, I would put the -3 in the X spot, and then I would put the 5 in the Y spot. Okay, and then if I was doing this next one right here, I would put 2, 2, and then this one over here, the 2 would go in the X, and the 4 would go in the Y. And then that last one over on the end would be 4 and -1. So this is the second way to show relations is a T-chart. And we're going to be working with T-charts a lot in a little bit. And then the third way to show ordered pairs is on an actual graph. So if I were to graph these, this is going to be a really crude graph because I don't have my setup here. Okay, so I'm just putting some lines here so I can kind of graph some of these. Okay, if I was to graph -3, 5, I would go -3 up to 5 and put it there. So that's my first point, right? I'm doing the same points that were in 1 and 2. Then if I did 2, 2, that would be right here, 2, 2. The next one was 2, 4. And the last one is 4, -1. So this is another way to show your relation. Remember, we're talking about relations, is by graphing it. So we can do ordered pairs, we can do a T-chart, and we can do a graph. So those are the 3 ways to show relations. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to talk to y'all about are X and Y coordinates and what they're called. Okay, so let me move this up a little bit. We need to write down what these are. So in ordered pairs, let's write it like this. In ordered pairs, and then I'm going to show you an example like X, Y. So I'm using the letters instead of using numbers right now. The X coordinate, so that's the first one, right, is called the domain. And you're going to need to know this because they're going to ask you, like, what is the domain? And you need to know that it's the X, right? So the X coordinate is called the domain, and the Y coordinate is called the range. So you need to have that all written down. I'm going to kind of put some color coding here. X coordinate is domain, Okay, so I'm just outlining those in blue. And y coordinate is the range. Okay, so you need to know the difference in what those two things are. Okay, what they're called. Oops. Oh, good night. I'm not getting my colors here right. Okay, so now remember that. Make sure you have that written down for the next part that we're going to talk about. Okay, so we're going to go into example 1. So example 1 says find the domain and range. Find the domain and range. And all that means is the x and the y for this relation. So remember, a relation is just a set of ordered pairs. So here's my ordered pairs, and this was the same one that I used earlier, but I'm just going to rewrite it. -3, 5, 2, 2, 2, 4, and 4, -1. So it wants you to tell them the domain and the range. So your answer would be the domain is, and this is how you write it. You put brackets like this, kind of squiggly lines. And my domain's going to be this number. Hold on, let me do this in a different color. It's going to be this one, all the x's, right? Now notice notice that 2 is on here twice. So when I write it down here, I'm only going to write it once. I'm going to say -3, 2, and 4. That's my domain. You only have to write the 2 once because it doesn't matter how many times. It just wants to know if 2 is part of the domain. So it is. Okay, and then the range is, and then I do my little squiggly lines, and the domain is going to be all these y values. Now notice the y has 4 of them because none of them were double, or they didn't have them twice. So I'm going to write all of those, 5, 2, 4, and -1. So I wrote down all the ones that I underlined in red. So remember, range, these are the ones I underlined in red, and domain are the ones I underlined in blue. So domain is the x, and range is the y. And that's your answer. So on your assignment today, if it asks you to tell them the domain and the range, all you're doing is writing out the x's all together or the y's all together. Okay, you can also show the domain and range as a circle. It's kind of like a circle graph, but not exactly. So let me show you how that looks. And you will have to do this in homework and maybe even on some assignments, but I don't usually put this on test unless it's extra credit. Okay, so I'm going to still use these same ones up here. I'm going to write down these for domain. So I'm going to have -3, 2, and 4. And then I'm going to write down these for the range. So I'm going to have 5, 2, 4, -1. And now I'm going to match them up with arrows. So I'm going to look, this is kind of hard to show y'all when I'm not in your face being able to point. So I'm trying to do this with colors. Okay, so up here, see where I'm circling with yellow? I'm going to match up my -3 down here with the 5 because that's what it is up where I just circled with yellow. Okay, my second one, 2, 2, I'm going to go 2 and put an arrow to 2. Okay, my next one is 2, 4. So I'm going to take again to that same 2, but I'm going to draw a second arrow to the 4. So you see how that kind of ended up both that 2, this 2 having 2 different arrows. Okay, and then the last one, 4, -1. So this 4 is going to go to -1. Okay, and that's how you do your circle graphs. Okay. Well, they're not called circle graphs. Sorry, this is called a circle model. So let's write that down. Circle model. In case you see it on your homework, you'll know what they're talking about. Okay, and most of the time, like in your answers for your work, they will put these from least to greatest. So it would look more like this, -1, 2, 4, 5. But it doesn't matter to me as long as you have them arrows pointing to the right ones. Okay, So we know what the domain and the range is. Now let's move on to what a function is. Okay, so a function, so you're learning some new words today. You've learned relation, range, domain, and now function. So a function is a relation in which each x-coordinate is paired with only one y-coordinate. So I'm going to show you some examples of what a function looks like and what one doesn't look like. Okay, so let's look at this one. This is example 2. So I'm going to draw a graph real quick, and it's just going to be the first quadrant graph. And actually, I'm going to make it a little bit different than the one in the book. I usually use the examples from the book, but this one's a little bit harder to do that with. Okay, so let's say this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this one would be 1, 6. This one is 2, 4. And this one is 3, 2. Okay, so there's your 3 ordered pairs. So that you could see it as a graph, or maybe they just tell you, oh, here's your relation, and now they want to know, is this a function? So that's your question. Is this relation a function? So you go back and look at the way that what a function is. It says each x-coordinate is paired with only one y-coordinate. So this one, x is 1, has a 6. This x is a 2 and it has a 4, and this is a 3 and it has a 2. So each of those x's, the 1, only has one number with it. So the answer to this is yes. Okay, let's look at one that's a no, because that's usually what helps a kid really see what the function is. So example 3, and this one I'm just going to give you the numbers. Maybe we'll graph it in a minute. Okay, so -3, 5, 2, 2. This is the same example we had earlier. 2, 4, and 4, -1. Okay, so on this one, they're saying, is this one a relation? So is this a relation? I mean, a function. Is this a function? We know it's a relation because that's just a set of ordered pairs, but is it a function? So does each x only have one y? Okay, well, this is the way you look at it. You look at all the x's and you see, do I have more than one x that is the same? Yes, this x is the same. So that means this x has 2 different y's. It has a 2 and a 4, right? Even because the x is the same, but it has a different y. So this doesn't work up here where it says it's paired with only one y coordinate, because the x as 2, is paired with 2 different y coordinates. So the answer to this one is no. Okay, and let's look at, so when you're looking at it with ordered pairs, you're looking to see if the x is more than once. Okay, it doesn't matter if the y is more than once, but you can't have the x more than once, because then that x is paired with more than one y. Now, if I looked at this on a graph, so let's go back here and look at where I wrote this in a graph. Didn't I put this on a graph? Yes. So up here, where I put this as a graph, let's look at why it's not a function. So there's a thing called a vertical line test. If I can draw a vertical line through 2 of the points, that means it's not a function. And we're going to write that down here. Okay. So if we're going to write that down right here. If you can draw a vertical line, not horizontal, vertical line, through 2 points, it is not a function. So 2 different ways I've showed you now to tell is if they give you ordered pairs and there's 2 of the same x, that means it's not a function. Okay, if all the x's are different, then you're good. That's a function. Okay, and then the other way I showed you was through a graph, and that's this one. If you can draw a vertical line through 2 points, it is not a function. Okay, I'm not going to do example 4 for you on, well, actually I'll draw you kind of close to an example 4. You can look in your book at their example 4. I'm going to show you a different one. Okay, let's say here's my graph, right? And this is what your graph looks like. So this is kind of crude, but let's say this is your graph. Okay, so now what I want you to do, let's say these are the points. So I want to know if this is a function or not a function. So if this is all you have, some of y'all might want to go in and say, well, this point is 1, 2, and this point is 3, 3. And you might want to do that to see if they have the same. This one would be 4, 3. And you can do that. It's probably just going to take you a little while to write down all the different numbers. And if I did that and I looked at all the different numbers, then I could see, okay, all my x's are different. My x's are 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. My y's, some of my y's are the same, but the x's are different. So that would mean this is a function. Or let me write it like, yes, a function, okay? But if you don't want to write down all those, you could also go through and do a vertical line test. So let me erase these so that you can see. Anytime you have a graph, you don't have to look at what the x's and y's are. You just have to look at a vertical line. So if I take any vertical line like this, those are straight up and down, and you say, does that pass through 2 points? No, it's only passing through 1 point there, 1 point there. Here's another vertical line. Nope, it only passed through 1 point there. So this is a function because there's no vertical line that hits 2 of them. Okay, that's it for today. I know it may sound a little bit confusing, but maybe once you start doing a few on your own, you'll be able to do them and not have too many questions. So make sure that you text or ask me any questions you have while doing your homework. You're basically going to be asking if things are functions and whether what the domain and range is for different things. And that's it for today. Thank you.